1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men are victims of sexual abuse. And these numbers don't highlight the disproportionate numbers of those survivors who don't report, or those survivors who may identify elsewhere on the gender spectrum. This podcast is for all of us, survivors of sexual abuse and assault, who want to experience a life worth living beyond a tragic past. My name is DJ Burr, and I'm a licensed mental health therapist, author, screenwriter, sober person, and I'm a survivor of sexual abuse. I know the complexity of healing from trauma. I also know the joy that comes from the healing process. Hear our stories and share your own. You are not alone. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Journey On. I'm DJ Burr, and today with me I have Rick Huttner. He is the author of Resilient People, A Journey from Abuse to Healing and Love, an Amazon bestseller. Rick, good morning. How are you?
Good morning, DJ. I'm quite fine, thank you.
Yes, good. I'm glad to hear that. Can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what brings you to Journey On?
Yeah. Well, I'm 75 years old, extremely healthy, happy, have a great wife, 4 kids, 6 grandkids, and it wasn't always beautiful. At 6 months, I was the youngest of 4 sons, and at 6-month-old, my mother had a pretty spectacular nervous breakdown and attempted to kill myself and my brother Andrew. 2 brothers have no recollection of that. And I didn't have any recollection of it until I was in my middle to late 20s. But what I did have is 2 night terror dreams. And I'll briefly go through them. One was I was in a room, it was dark. I knew I was small, and I felt tremendous pressure on my chest and throat. And the more I fought, the worse it got. And it only stopped when I gave up and surrendered, and I'd wake up soaked in sweat and terrified. And the second dream, I was in that room. Again, it was dark. I had the strong sense someone was coming to hurt me or kill me. And I had a gun, had a handgun, and I could point the gun, but I could not pull the trigger no matter how hard I tried. And I could see myself, face contorted, my mouth open, screaming, but no sound. And I'd wake up from that and again, terrified, soaked in sweat. And this went on until I was in my 20s. And with help of some very good therapists, I have supported a lot of therapists. And part of my book talks about finding a therapist. But working with these people, it came to me the realization of what happened. And the shock in, the therapy, I had to be held down. I never had those dreams again, ever. When I was 13, we lived on Long Island, New York. My parents had a little cabin in the Catskills, very little. It was an old 1-room schoolhouse and 2 outhouses, but it was fun place to spend the summer. And there was a friend of the family, of the local constable, a guy named Bob Grenny, and good friends of the family, and took a real interest in me, and bought me my first rifle, a Mossberg 22, taught me how to shoot it, how to clean it, how to care for it, and take me riding in his police car. It was incredibly exciting for a 13-year-old boy. Until he took me to his house and sexually abused me. And then it just kind of, the world went crazy in my head. And because I was 13. I mean, remember, no internet back then. No, we're talking 1958. No internet, nothing. And he swore me to silence. He told me, Rick, this is so incredibly beautiful between us. You can never, ever talk to anyone about it. And 20 years, I never did. I was sworn to silence. So that, I dragged that through my life until I was in my very late 50s, and did well in business, made a lot of money, lost a lot of money. It seems I kept doing that. And there was part of me that didn't believe I was worth having all that good. So I had 5 automobile accidents, 4 motorcycle accidents. By the grace of God, I didn't kill myself and anyone else. And every one of those accidents, either drugs or alcohol was involved. And because I started drinking when I was 13 after the abuse, because I didn't want to feel, DJ. I didn't want to feel.
I understand.
I just didn't want to feel all that stuff that happened to me. And so alcohol became a real good friend. It also ultimately became an enemy. And, but, I went to Vietnam, went through that, got back. And I don't know if all the young people know much about Vietnam, but we weren't welcome back as soldiers. We were pretty well despised. And I was a functional alcoholic for 10 years, did my business. After work, have a drink. One drink felt really good. The second one was great. It was the third, fourth, and fifth that, put me in a stupor. But I kept doing therapy. And so here's one of the things I learned about finding a therapist. There are a tremendous amount of well-intentioned, very kind and thoughtful therapists out there. They all do not know how to deal with sexual abuse, and can actually do more damage than good. So one of the things I spent a lot of time researching in the book is how to identify a therapist, how to interview, because it's a huge decision and it's your life. And before just giving it over to someone, I think it behooves us to do the research really well and to have expectations around what the therapy process is, what it costs, and to be very comfortable at some point saying, no, what you're doing does not work. And so it's taken responsibility for our healing. So, I joined an organization called Mankind Project. I don't know if you ever heard of it, DJ.
I am aware.
Yeah, it's an international men's organization whose mission is to create a better world, one man, one father at a time. One man, one husband, one father at a time. And I had friends encourage me to go, and I never felt comfortable. I never felt comfortable around other men because of the sexual abuse by a man. And someone who, quote, loved me, it took me a long time to figure out that wasn't love. He was a predator, a pedophile. And he planned it and executed it. And pedophiles are very charismatic. And they're very, very good at putting the blame on a child.
That is true. That is true. That's part of their disease.
Yeah, yeah. So as a child, it was very difficult for my mind, and I think a child's mind, to comprehend everything that was happening and understand it. And it's almost impossible to understand this person who, as a 13-year-old happy kid, good time, oh, this person loves me. And he's good friends with my family. He's got to be a good guy. Well, he wasn't a good guy, you know, and so I had to take the steps to start healing. And one of the things I did is I wrote a sign and put it on my office door, and it said, "What am I thinking?" And kept a journal. And end of the first day, I was stunned at how many negative thoughts went through my mind, not just in a day, but the hour and the minutes. So I'd write those down, and if I was in a place I couldn't deal with it, I'd make a note and deal with it later. But I started to realize how damaged my mind was. You know, also, this man showed me pornographic videos, you know, because this went on for a while. And the pornographic videos were very degrading to women. I didn't know that at the time. So I had this perverted perception of how a woman would like to be treated sexually, you know, and it was bizarre. And early on as a young man, I was dating this lady. She was beautiful. She loved me and all, but when it got intimate, I got scared. When I get scared, I wasn't good to be around, and I bailed. Then later, I met this beautiful woman. She's in our church, and we fell in love, engaged to be married. And one day it got really intimate and all, and I got terrified and I bailed. And I didn't bail in a nice way. You know, I just left. And, you know, in my book, I apologize. So I don't mention the names because that would be inappropriate. But I had so much to unlearn and so much to learn. And here's one of the really powerful things I began to grasp. I started doing a lot of research on the mind. And a child's mind gets damaged by abuse. And so over time, and I did a lot of reading, I did a lot of research, talked to some very brilliant people in that arena. And I realized there's a big difference between the brain and the mind. The brain, I believe, is a collection, storage, and retrieval mechanism. And it does that exceedingly well. Also does things great, like keep your heart beating and breathing, you know, but it doesn't think. The brain does not think. The mind thinks, and the mind creates. Now, it can create negative as easily as positive. So what I worked on was on creating this story I believed about myself, that I didn't have any self-esteem, wasn't worthy of having a joyful life or a good relationship. And I had to start dismantling that thought process and replacing it with positive ones. Now, if you look at some of the greatest prophets and teachers in the world, you know, Jesus Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, Krishna, all said your thoughts will create your life. And that is, I believe that so strongly, DJ, that, I had crap running in my mind all the time for so long, and I don't anymore. Now, I won't tell you a thought doesn't come up, because it still does. But what I do is bless it and let it go and go back to what I know is the truth of me, is that I'm a perfect child of the divine, or God, if you will, or however you choose to language God's name. So, and that didn't happen overnight either. That was a process, but my life got better and better and better. One of the defining moments, I got into a lawsuit between two people I knew. I actually put them together, and the transaction went public and went bad. And the CEO, chairman of the company, decided to sue all of us. And lawsuit went on for almost 5 years. And every time we responded, they'd amend the lawsuit. They did 27 amendments, which is absolutely crazy. And what they kept trying to do is push us to settle, and I wouldn't settle. And then they sued my 4 children. And I had got that kicked out in Texas. We thought it was done, and then they sued them in Colorado and Arizona. We were fortunate, had a very good attorney to get it into federal court. And at the first federal court hearing, the judge dismissed the lawsuits against him with prejudice, so they couldn't refile them anywhere. But all in all, I spent $970,000 defending myself and my family over 5 years. And I would tell you initially, I had such revenge running through my mind of what I wanted to do to these people, until again, working specifically in Mankind Project and with a therapist, Dr. Rosanna Skurs, is one of the top child psychologists in Houston. She's also a board member of Resilient People, started working with me. And I realized in some manner there was a gift in all of this. And there was a gift. And the gift was I got to really clear out everything, you know. And a little side point, I know talking about abuse is the beginning of healing. Because the more we keep it bottled up, it grows. And it doesn't grow pretty.
That's true. And it can come out in a variety of ways. Addiction, depression, anxiety, so many different manifestations of, that trauma that we experience.
Yeah. So I just began to work this, and it got better and better. And I realized that everything that happened, the abuse, that lawsuit, was bringing me to a point. And the point was, I realized I was healing. My life was getting better. I began to like myself. And with that, a lot of the tension drained away. And I truly learned what forgiveness was. I was brought up in a very, I think, unhealthy religious family. Not my father, my mother. And I think that's because she had a lot of guilt what happened. But it just came to me. So my original understanding of forgiveness, you forgive people and you got to like them. You don't have to like them. You don't have, and I realized, and there's some great work by Emmett Fox. He's he does metaphysical interpretation of like the Lord's Prayer, 23rd Psalm, Sermon on the Mount. And he went through forgiveness thing that made sense to me. He says, you bring that person in your mind, you bring yourself in, and you use the spirit of divine or God or Jesus, again, however you want to language it, and forgive. And it does not mean you have to bring that person back into your life or you have to like that person. But I realized the forgiveness freed me. Didn't do anything for the other people. They were long gone. But it freed me and opened myself to love myself more. And I realized if I could fully love myself, then I have the ability to love others. And so that was a significant move. And it just, and And in all that healing, I was talking to the mankind leaders. I said, I've done this. I'm doing it. I'm not sure it's ever done, but it's, I'm doing it. And I think maybe I can help other people. And I made this absurd statement. I said, I'm going to write a book. I've never written a book. I was a finance guy. And so I got introduced to a company called Book in a Box. I think it's now called Scribe Media. And I talked to him, but it was like $40,000. And I went, shoo. So I just put it out to the universe. And one of my clients said, Rick, you got a piece of art in our warehouse you're not using. Do you want to sell it? I say, yeah, I do. He says, I'll give you $20,000. And I paid $8,700 for it. And the market at that time was $37,500. I don't know if you could have sold it for $37,500, but there was $20,000. And then he knew what I was doing. And he says, look, are you going to put money in Resilient? I says, yeah, Annie and I put together 10,000. He says, I'll match it. 40 grand. So, DJ, what I began to realize is the universe, God, divine, however you choose it, is there to support us. And I found it was only me who separated myself from my good. And when I, again, learned to love myself and love other people and make the commitment to help other survivors, my life got better and better and better. And the book was a challenge to write. My wife initially was horrified. She says, Rick, you, because she read everything I wrote, and she's a gift in that. But she says, you people are going to read this. I said, well, that's the point. She says, do you have to go into the abuse part? I said, well, if I want to help people, I think it's fair they know what I went through and was able to overcome. So we did it. And a little funny side, she says, all right, I'm going to tell all my friends not to read chapter 3 and 4. I said, that's great, Annie. That's the first chapters they're going to go to. But DJ, I no longer had a reason to ever again be embarrassed or ashamed about what happened to me. I did nothing wrong as a child. It is always, unquestionably, the responsibility of the caregiver to protect a child, even if they're provocative, no matter what, protect the child.
Right. Yes, I absolutely agree with you.
I've been rambling a lot. You want to ask me some questions?
No, you're not rambling. I mean, you're telling the story that many of us have experienced, and you're absolutely right. It's not our fault, right? But we have to take the responsibility in the healing process.
Right.
I'm curious if your healing process started when you were a child, or did it start when you were an adult? And did your parents ever know about it?
The experience started when I was, the healing began when I was 20. Those night terror dreams really drove me insane for a long time. Mm-hmm. So, and enough was happening in my life. So I do really good stuff and I'd blow it and all. And I knew I needed help. And I was working for a company and I was their controller and took the job. It was a difficult job. It was bought by a major international company and they wanted to change everything. And I did that. And I was very good at it. Well, then I we cleaned it up and did everything great. And I started taking advantage of it. If I go to lunch, and I know I'd have a drink at lunch. Work was over, I'd go have a couple cocktails. And I just started not doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And the assistant controller came to me one day and said, Rick, you're probably the best person I ever worked with in my life. And you gave me chances because I don't have a degree, other people didn't. I knew her from a previous position she was in, but she said, I'm not covering fee anymore. Over. And I went, all right. So I called up my best friend, his name was Rick too. And he said, Rick, you won't believe this. Let's go meet at my brother's bar. I got to tell you what happened. So I went there and was indignant, all I've done for her and this and that, yada, yada, yada. And he said, Rick, you ought to listen to her. She has a lot of respect for you and she cares about you. I said, okay, I'll think about it. So the next day, the president of the company calls me on the phone. He's, Rick, I need to see you. I said, all right. So I got a nice gym. What do you need? He says, close the door and sit down. He says, Rick, you're probably one of the best financial guys I ever worked with. You have helped turn this around. Because he came in as the president right after I was hired by the former managers. But he says, your life's going the wrong way. Clean it up or I'm going to fire you. I'm like, holy shit. So I called Rick again. I said, Rick, you won't believe this. Let's go have some drinks. So we were doing, and he listened to me and he says, yeah, I'm your best friend, aren't I? I said, yeah. He says, you need help. You got to get into therapy. You are out of control. Your drinking's out of control, So I went, I was like stunned. And he said, I'm going to give you the name of two therapists, husband and wife team. They did what was called I'm okay, you're okay, behavioral work. And so I went there, started in private therapy and went to group therapy. And that's where I learned about the abuse by my mother.
The physical abuse.
Yeah, the physical abuse. So all this, I kind of lost my point I was making, DJ. Can you kind of get me back to where I was?
Yeah. Well, I was curious about, if your parents started you on the path of getting help early on when you were having the night terrors. And I was curious if, when you had started the treatment for the abuse that happened to you when you were 13, if that occurred soon after or when you were an adult. It sounds like your friends it sounds like your friends, those closest to you, saw that you had a problem with alcohol and got you, and at least encouraged you to seek treatment as an adult.
See, the thing about and this is where, if you're abused and you need to get help, it's not always the best thing to go to your family.
True.
Because 90% of abuse is perpetrated by a family member or somebody very close to the family. And the goal may be to keep the abused silent.
Yep.
And the abuse continues. So I say to people, look, if you feel this, find a trusted source. You can use the guidelines in the book. There are many organizations out there who will talk to you in confidence, anonymously if you choose. The key is to begin the process. Now, what I also encourage people, it's really powerful to talk about what happened. You got to be really careful where you talk about it. Facebook, Twitter, that are not good places because you had no idea what you're going to get back. And you may get back more abuse than you got from the abuse.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
I think that also tells you about the people who you have in your life too. If they're not supportive, if they're not understanding and empathetic, I think that could be some information, but you're right. It could cause additional harm. But so my hope is that when people do disclose, they disclose to people that are trustworthy and who have the capacity to offer either sympathy or empathy. In your treatment at the center, when your friends referred you, was that an ongoing experience? Was it just a workshop? What has
it went on for 3 years.
Okay, 3 years, good.
3 years.
All right.
And I began to love it. In fact, at one point they said, Ricky, we think you can move on. I decided to become an assistant.
Oh.
Because again, I was intrigued. I was intrigued by people's experience. And it's again where I started going deeper and deeper into what is the mind, and how does that instrument, which is a very, very powerful instrument, how does that operate? And so that was intriguing. Then I ended that and started to, I did a lot of healing seminars. I'd fly around the country and do all these things and all. But at one point, I realized I kept looking outside myself to get fully healed. And what I realized, it's not going to come from outside. Outside can help, but I had to heal me within. I had to heal my heart and my mind. And once that happened, again, Mankind Project was a significant support there. You know, I'd say this didn't all like boom happen. It was incremental. And I was committed to healing and living a joyful and productive life. And I can tell you right now, I have a joyful, productive, wonderful life, a wonderful woman I'm married to, 4 kids. And the kids were very supportive of my writing the book.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
All right, I apologize. I thought I shut that off.
Uh-oh. So my question is around like the alcohol use. When you got into the treatment, was there, did they address the alcohol abuse?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Did you stop drinking?
No.
Okay. What changed?
I was very good at stopping drinking. I was better at starting it up again. Mm-hmm. You know, I'd quit drinking. I feel so good. I went, shoot, I'm going to go have a drink. Yeah, that's the craziness in the mind.
Yeah.
So it took me probably 20 years, not that long, but I got to be a moderate drinker. And I'll enjoy a cocktail or a glass of wine, but I don't get my brain inebriated so I can't think.
Okay.
So,
all right.
And for a long time, I thought I was an alcoholic, and doing a lot of work with. So you abuse alcohol. You're not an alcoholic, and I don't know what kind of distinction there is there, but what I know now is, you know, we'll have a glass of wine with dinner, and that's just fine.
Okay.
But I'm careful about, you know, we get together at a party or something. I have a drink and I'll switch to club soda or something. You know.
Okay, so you have some mindfulness over your drinking. You understand that how alcohol showed up in your life and how destructive it was at one point.
Yeah.
You do not identify as an alcoholic. And it sounds like the providers, the treatment that you received, they were able to help you understand how to engage with the substance in a moderate way.
Right.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It was good.
Well, good. I'm glad. So the book, where can our listeners find your book?
On Amazon.
Okay. So your Amazon bestseller, Resilient People, A Journey from Abuse to Healing and Love, is available now on Amazon. And where can they find out information about the Mankind Project? Because it sounds like it's been extremely helpful to you.
Very, very helpful. Go to Mankind, Google Mankind Project.
Okay.
And it'll give you that. Also go to my website, www.resilientpeople.us, and we'll have information on there.
Excellent. Okay. And but before we close, I wanted to ask you, and I know this is in your book, can you give us maybe 2 or 3 suggestions when looking for appropriate care in terms of a therapist?
Again, I'll refer people to the book. There's an extensive chapter on it. I think the most important thing is to clearly write down what your objectives are. What do you want from this therapy? And then it's a matter of interviewing that therapist. And a lot of us go to therapists and we're kind of in awe and we just accept what they say. But I think you want to listen to what their philosophy is on the healing process. What their experience is this 3 months, 6 months, a year, 10 years, and what is the cost? Because you got to bear the cost. And so, I think a whole lot of it is intuitive, which for an abused child is not very good initially on. Our intuitive has been warped, been damaged. So, but I think you have to listen to your conscience, and it may be wise to have someone on the phone with you.
That's a great idea.
So they can get a read, and you get off the phone, okay, what do you think? And, again, I'm going to say this. There are a tremendous amount of caring, loving therapists out there, but they all do not know how to deal with child abuse. So it's important to ask, have you dealt with sexual abuse victims? And how do you work with a sexual abuse victim? And then if you agree to go. Never be afraid to go, you know what, this is not working for me. And as you build more trust and confidence in yourself, you'll get that better and better and better.
Yeah.
I've gotten very intuitive. I don't, with all our political drama and everything in the country and divisions and all, one of my rules, if somebody wants to have a conversation, I love a conversation. I says, okay, I'd be glad to have a conversation. Here are the ground rules. I'm going to listen to you. And I mean, listen, rather than preparing an answer to what you're saying and haven't finished saying. And I expect you to listen to me. Any of those things don't happen, bless you, conversation's over.
I love it. That's a great, solid boundary.
Yeah.
And that's one that I can stand by myself. There's no need to engage in foolishness, right? If people can't show up for you and listen to you, and you're not able to listen to them, you're not having a conversation anyway. So disengage. So I really appreciate that boundary and that reflection. So I encourage my listeners to go grab Rick's book, go to his website, resilientpeople.us, check out the Mankind Project. And, Rick, are you on social media at all?
Yes, on Facebook.
Okay, so they can, if they're interested, they can try to find you on Facebook as well.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you, Rick, for coming on today and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate your authenticity and your transparency. It's really helpful in this healing journey that we're all on to hear stories of hope and survival. So thank you.
Can I close with one quote?
Yes, please.
It's, and I'm at a loss who made the quote, but it's in the book. But it's, let me be to someone else what no one was to me.
Beautiful.
So DJ, God bless you for the work you're doing. Thank you.
Same to you.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of Journey On. I hope this story will help you on your healing journey. I want to hear from you. Leave me a message at anchor.fm/journeynonpod/message, and I might be able to respond to you on a future episode. Tweet me at TheDJBurr. Follow me on Instagram at TheDJBurr. Like the Journey On Facebook page at facebook.com/journeynonpod, and join our survivor community at facebook.com/journeynonsurvivors. Till next time. The music in this episode is by Conduit, Matthew Ortega. Learn more at www.condewit.com. That's conduit.com.